we're consumers. We naturally and inherently have a BS detector, right? So we're going to be able to tell as a consumer when a partnership doesn't feel authentic. The creators know their audience best. They know what's going to resonate.
Welcome to Marketing Happy Hour. I'm Cassie, consultant, podcaster, and your host. You'll hear episodes packed with insights from brand leaders on an array of topics, from crafting effective marketing strategies and hitting career goals to building leadership skills and launching your own business. Inspired by those unfiltered happy hour convos with peers, this show is all about practical, empowering chats to support your professional journey. So grab your favorite drink and let's get to the episode. Today, I have Theresa with me of Popular Pays by Lightricks. We're going to learn about her experience, of course, in her role there, but just overall, the biggest mistakes brands make when working with creators and how to avoid those, measuring ROI of influencer marketing campaigns, and just some of the hidden risks of influencer collaborations and how tools like SafeCollab and Popular Pays overall helps brands protect their reputations. But Theresa, welcome. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I can't wait to dig in and talk about some of those topics you just mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, before we dive in here in true marketing happy hour fashion, I have to know what's been in your glass lately, anything you've been enjoying right now or just in general?
So I would say in general, I'm a coffee in the morning, water in the afternoon, and then wine at night person.
Love it. Love it. Do you have a specific wine that you typically enjoy?
It's very cliche, but I love a crisp French rosé.
Hey, I don't blame you. I'm right there with you. Well, let's dive in here. Please, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about yourself and just overall, how do you personally approach partnerships and influencer marketing?
Yes, absolutely. So I have been at Popular Pays for almost 8 years now, which is really crazy when I take a step back and think about all we've done. The first 4.5 years, we were Popular Pays, and then we were acquired by Lightricks just 3 years ago last week, which was a really exciting milestone. So in terms of kind of how I personally approach, kind of partnerships and influencer marketing, for me and what drives me, it's really connecting authentic creators with brands that are going to truly align with their values and build relationships for the long haul. And I say that because what we have seen, at least in my time over the last 8 years here at Popular Pays, is some of the most successful collaborations are not from those one-off transactions, but more so from those ongoing partnerships where both parties, the creators and the brands, are growing together. They're learning about what's working, what's not working, how are they resonating with the audience. And because I'm naturally curious just about people's stories in general, I find what really energizes me is finding those perfect brand and creator matches.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And even just on a tactical level, we say this all the time in marketing that oftentimes people have to hear or see a message, 5, 6 times before they're ready to buy something. So more on that conversion ROI level, allowing a influencer to collaborate with you as a brand long-term, giving their audience a lot more saturation across a number of different platforms and post types. So I think even just from a tactical level, that's so huge. And that value alignment too, of course, is very important. So thanks for mentioning that.
Of course.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about Popular Pays then, who is it for, both on the brand side and the creator side even too, and how are marketers just utilizing it right now?
Absolutely. So a little bit about Popular Pays. We did start as a platform to democratize content creation a little over 12 years ago. And, I love to tell this story because our Popular Pays CEO started the company because he was actually working in an ad agency and saw that there was a need to work with influencers in a scalable way. And we're homegrown. We are based and started here in Chicago. And what he initially started doing was we built this platform to give creators an opportunity to make a living doing what they love, which is generating content, but then in turn allowing brands to be able to scale that content creation and kind of drive that in-store online traffic. Today, we're a comprehensive influencer marketing solution. We have over 160,000 opt-in creators in our community, and we we match them with brands who are looking for that authentic content, right? And so I think what sets us apart is that we truly have an end-to-end approach. So it's everything from discovering creators to vetting them to contracting with them, reviewing their content, and then measuring the performance post-campaign.
So would you say too, it's kind of for these brands who know they need influencer marketing, but they maybe need some external support to help guide and facilitate those campaigns, essentially, like your one-stop shop?
100%. And I think what we have found is that's definitely the sweet spot, right? It's brands that have tested influencer marketing. They know that it works for their brand. They know that it needs to be a part of their overall marketing mix, but they also know they need to work with a platform so that they can scale that solution, right? So they can save time, they can save money, and they can also then free up time to go and work on what we like to call some of the other important work, right? So absolutely. But we work with brands ranging from, small size all the way up through to Fortune 500.
Awesome. We're going to circle back to the platform here in a bit, but I just want to kind of dive into some more tactical influencer marketing strategies and tips that you would want to pass along. So, in your opinion, what do you feel separates an effective influencer marketing campaign from one that just simply falls flat? I know this is kind of a loaded question. There might be a lot there, but just overall strategies for success, I'm curious what you would say to that.
That is such a great point because there are so many different ways we could go with this. But I think the most important things to keep in mind are what I like to call kind of like the three key or like base elements. I think one is authenticity, right? Like we're consumers. We are consuming hours and hours worth of media a day. And I think knowing that we are doing that, we naturally and inherently have a BS detector, right? So we're going to be able to tell as a consumer when a partnership doesn't feel authentic. And so what we will always talk to our brands about that we're partnering with is make sure that you're featuring creators who genuinely will use and love your product, because when they speak about it in their own voice, it's going to resonate with their audience, right? I think number two is creative freedom. We work with a lot of brands and agencies who may still be, testing out influencer marketing, learning how to best use it, what are the best practices. And we'll find that they can be very prescriptive when they're filling out the brief in terms of here's how we want you to show the product, use the product, talk about the product, and there's a lot of guidelines that then tends to restrict a little bit of that creative freedom. And what we always like to remind our partners is that the creators know their audience best. So of course there's going to be content mandatories. Of course there's going to be do's and don'ts and things you can or can't say. But once we kind of get through that, we often encourage our partners to let the creators create for their audience, because again, they know what's going to resonate and work best. I'd say the third, honestly, is strategic alignment. So making sure that truly there's that alignment between the brand and the creator, but then also their audience, right? Because the brand and the creator might be aligned and they might think this is a really powerful and great partnership, but that doesn't necessarily mean this is the right audience for that. So we've seen gorgeous content fall flat because ultimately it was targeted to the wrong audience.
Yeah, it's such a great point. And I think that goes back to just doing that due diligence early on, right? And I think a lot of times this goes both ways, but brands get super excited seeing the potential influencer that they could partner with because of audience size and, past successful collaborations. And then same on the other side too, influencers get approached by brands and are like, oh my gosh, this brand is huge and how cool is this? But when you have that kind of disconnection at the end of the day, it's not going to be successful for either end. The influencer's audience will start to question them and then the brands as well. And so, yeah, that's incredibly, incredibly important. So what is that, in terms of vetting for the brands specifically on that point, how do you recommend kind of vetting influencers? What are some things to be paying attention to and maybe even questions to be asking? How would you approach that specifically?
Yeah, so I think there's a few different ways you can approach it, whether, you are working with an agency, whether you're working with a platform. Some of the most important things that you need to do is look at their history of their content, right? So whether you're doing that manually and you're kind of checking out their Instagram posts, their TikTok posts, a quick Google search sometimes, just to kind of see, does anything pop up? Or if you are able to use a tool such as our SafeCollab tool, we actually combine all that for you. And within a matter of minutes, you can actually look back at the last 3 years of all of their social content and post while also scanning Google and any kind of news or alerts that may come up. And we say use this obviously with a grain of salt, right? Because every single brand is going to have a different risk tolerance or a different level of what they're kind of comfortable accepting and what they're not. So definitely having a very strong opinion on what will you tolerate and then what won't you tolerate. One of the other things we also oftentimes recommend is it's great that you want to kind of vet or look into a creator's history prior to a campaign, but it's also really important to, as they're posting and as people are, kind of consuming that content, commenting, also continuing to just monitor, potentially what they're doing online, because even if something comes up 3 months later, it could then, and we've seen this literally with some of our brands, it will come up like, hey, you actually partnered with this creator and now look at what they're talking about, and then your name could become associated with it. So definitely looking at it before, but also making sure you're monitoring it post.
And then kind of like what we were talking about earlier too, this idea of longevity with collaborations and campaigns. In addition to that, just as we're going into 2025, are you seeing that these cross-platform campaigns and getting creative with the different channels and the ways that a brand is collaborating with influencers is really helping? Or are you seeing more of the saturation on one single platform long term? Like, would love to hear your thoughts on that, just going into the rest of this year, kind of what's working for brands right now.
I think every brand is going to be a little bit different in terms of what platforms they're on and then ultimately what, kind of creators that they're working with. And I say that because, look, elephant in the room, we still don't know what's going to happen with TikTok, right? I don't even know if TikTok right now knows what's going to happen with TikTok. And so what we have seen in the last few months is absolutely a diversification of different platforms. So brands testing, hey, I may have been very TikTok heavy before because it really worked for me, but knowing that something might change, I need to start to test, IG stories, IG reels. I need to start maybe looking into YouTube shorts. I might need to expand even into something, say like a Snapchat or a Pinterest. So we're seeing a lot of testing right now, just on the off chance that something could happen. But I think just in general, what we started to see a couple of years ago, to your point, was, oh, you're posting on TikTok. Can you also syndicate to IG stories? And what we've been able to do is, because we've been doing this for so long, because we have so much data in our platform, we can actually show the importance of actually creating content that is specific to each platform and why it is so important. Because the way that somebody is looking at and consuming content on Instagram is so different from how they're consuming content on TikTok and kind of ingesting that. So we have seen a huge shift in specific content creation per platform by the brands and creators.
So speaking to kind of the ROI topic, right? Like brands are always wondering, okay, this all sounds great. We know we need this. This could be anything from influencer marketing to any other different tactic, right? But the question is, what's the return on investing the time, the energy, the money, of course, in this? So how do you recommend that brands should be thinking about ROI, but also measuring ROI of influencer marketing beyond some of those vanity metrics, quote unquote, like likes and follows? What are some things that we need to be paying attention to, you would say?
Absolutely. I think at the very base, it's custom tracking links, it's promo codes. Like those are just table stakes, right? For direct attribution. Like I know this post, this influencer put up with this code drove this amount of sales. That's something that's very easy to do. Some of the more sophisticated brands, right? So brands that have been doing this for a while, they're going a little bit deeper. They're implementing pixel tracking. They're using UTM parameters, or they're even creating custom landing pages so they can actually track, that full consumer journey. And there are companies out there that can help you do that really easily and seamlessly. What we're also seeing is on-platform conversion tracking has improved dramatically. I mean, just look at TikTok Shop, for example, right? They now offer these native shopping experiences with built-in analytics that will literally connect views to purchases. So I think, right, like it just depends on where you're at in your journey, but it's very, very easy to start with custom tracking links and promo codes so you can directly attribute that revenue.
Yeah. For sure. That's such a easy first lift on that. So I would love to get into just the Popular Pays platform as a whole a little bit here and just learn more about that. So you mentioned how the platform is really great for the first touch point all the way to the end of the campaign. Mm-hmm. So if a brand is listening and they're just curious kind of how the streamlining actually occurs. What is that process of finding and working with the right creators? What is kind of that overall experience that a brand has when working in the platform for the first time, for example?
Yeah, absolutely. And this this is where I get excited. So forgive me if I kind of go on for a couple of minutes. But I'm really proud of kind of the platform that we've built over the last 12 years. So, when we initially start to work together, we have a brief that launches to the opt-in community of creators. Our team of CSMs are going to help you craft a brief that is going to get you the best creators and the best content, right? Like, we have experience doing this. You're going to have a partner in all of this. So what we will then do is we'll launch the brief to our community of creators, and we have basically developed the hand raising approach, which is we're not going out and asking creators if they're interested in participating in this campaign. They have an app. Like, we've created an app just for creators. So they'll get an alert like, hey, a new brief has gone live. You might want to check this out, see if you want to apply. They'll review all of the mandatories, all of their requirements. And if they fit it and they think they'd be a good match and want to create content, they will raise their hand. They will apply to the campaign for then the brand to review. So then moving on from there, once that, kind of queue of creators fills up, our CSM team will take the first kind of glance at the creators just to make sure, like, okay, there's always going to be some creators that are overeager and really want to build their, their portfolio. So making sure that the creators that the brand is ultimately going to review and vet make the most sense. So then from there, again, everything happens in our platform. So everything is transparent. So then the brand is able to go into our platform and actually review the profiles of every single creator that has raised their hand to say that they want to work with them, to determine which ones will ultimately be the best fit, right? So you have everything in there from, what they're good at. So are they great at graphic design? Are they great at video? Are they great at, static images, still art, animation, what have you. You can also see their portfolio of content that they've actually submitted that they believe best represents the type of content they can create. From there, because we're marketing partners with all of the major social platforms, we have APIs that give us first-party data fed directly into the platform. So you can see audience analytics, you can see how old their audience is, where they're located, how engaged they are. You can even see like how their impressions and follower count grows over time, so that you can also just double check the authenticity of their audience. Then from there, I think what we always get complimented on is the content review workflow part of the platform. So once you accept a creator into the platform, they have a designated amount of time to upload their first piece of content for review. And no piece of content goes live until a brand has final approval. And so that is where you can review it. You can make sure that it, kind of meets the brand mandatories. And then once it does, you can go ahead and kind of click approve. And that's when the creator is then able to schedule that content to be posted. And then you can go ahead in real time actually check out all of the analytics, because again, like I mentioned, we have APIs into all of the major social platforms.
Yeah, for sure. I'm also curious too, if let's say a brand has an existing campaign or they have a relationship built with a influencer or creator, can they bring those campaigns also into Popular Pays and kind of monitor everything that way too? Or how does that work?
So actually a great question. Right now, we are an open community. So if you are working with a list of creators, or there's a handful of creators that you've really enjoyed working with, they're driving great results, but now that you're trying to consolidate your workflow into one platform, it's incredibly easy to invite them into the Popular Pays platform so you can continue working with them. What I will say is right now, we don't have a way to kind of import previous campaign data or even content. But I would say that's in the, I would say, midterm future. Short-term future is definitely integrating a lot more AI tools around vetting, content creation, smart, et cetera. But yeah, that's actually a really great question.
Awesome. Yeah, I was totally just curious, but because it's such a great, again, one-stop shop platform.
Yes.
So to be able to kind of manage everything there, and we'll definitely stay tuned for some additional updates like that. But, we've already talked a lot about just risks and, things pop up with creators and influencers, right? Like we hear something come out in the news or, they post something and we're like, oh my goodness, we didn't realize, they thought this or this would be appropriate for their channel or whatever. So things come up, right? But I'm curious with SafeCollab specifically, how is that supporting brands going a little bit deeper into this? How is that supporting brands with mitigating some of those risks, making sure that hopefully nothing out of the blue is going to pop up? And then to your point, like you said earlier, after a campaign does go live, they are
Right.
continuing to track that kind of behavior, quote unquote, on the
Yes.
platforms.
I mean, like you're not wrong. Brand safety is a big concern, and it's a big concern for a lot of brands, right? And so, we heard this so often over the last couple of years that we actually decided to build our own proprietary tool to help measure that, right? And so, what we have basically built the tool to enable is look, you want to scan all of their previous social media posts. Right now, default is 3. We can go up to 10 because, again, based on what is your level of sensitivity, right? What is your risk tolerance? There are going to be certain brands that have a significantly higher risk tolerance versus some other brands who have 0 tolerance. And then within that, we give you the ability to scan everything that our tool scanned. Essentially, you'll go in, you'll put in a creator's profile, you'll go ahead and kind of click vet. It takes a couple of minutes while it's scanning everything that they have posted, like I said, over the last 3 years and any news alerts. Then you're going to actually get a custom report that is going to show you, okay, we have 72 different safety risks that we are scanning for. Here are the amount of flags that we found. Now it's up to you to decide, do you think they're actually flags or not? So everything from alcohol use to swearing to, comments of a political nature, etc. And really truly putting that in the hands of the brand. I think the reason we do that is the technology is so sensitive. It is literally scanning text. It is scanning the video. It is scanning audio. It is scanning the captions. It is also scanning any content in the content itself. So the one example I always like to use is when we flagged for alcohol consumption, it's because somebody was holding a menu in the video and it literally listed wine in the
Oh,
menu.
interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's capturing things that, to our knowledge, no other tool can capture
Hmm.
yet. But again, for somebody who might be a small family-owned business and they have no tolerance for alcohol, they might find that to be a concern.
Right.
Where somebody else might be like, I'm actually targeting, adults 21 plus. This doesn't matter, but thanks for calling to my attention, and really kind of empowering the brands to make that decision for themselves.
Mm. And then I'm assuming too is like the platform learning from that too. Like, are they kind of, as you're tagging things and marking things as okay or not okay, like they're kind of learning you as the brand as well. Cool.
Absolutely. And kind of having more of that custom parameter and custom risk
Hmm.
tolerance, right? And one of the things that we're going to be rolling out soon is also being able to put in additional factors that you want to search for that we might not
Hmm.
be default searching for, but are very important to your brand. So whether that's mentions of
Awesome.
competition, maybe other activities they might participate in that you're against, like we'll be able to add those in and scan for those as well.
Awesome. Very cool. I'm curious, like, again, I love this era of technology that we're in as marketers. I firmly believe like AI and these tools that we have available to us is really a beautiful thing, and it's helping our jobs just become more efficient.
Yes.
And we're creating brand safety, like you mentioned, and there's a number of different layers that are beneficial. I'm wondering, moving into again the end of 2025, finishing out this year into next year, for example, tools like what you all have, in addition to other strategies that you feel will really help influencer marketing teams be equipped for success. So, popular pays plus, are there any other outlooks on influencer marketing or thoughts around just strategies that we should be employing to ensure success moving forward? I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. One of our biggest focuses this year is how can we not just integrate AI, because everyone is doing that, but how can we do it in a way that is going to help our partners and our creators become more effective? Like you said, right? Like, how does it help me become better at my job? How do I, potentially get things done, faster so I'm working smarter, not harder? And so, like I mentioned, we have SafeCollab and we're constantly making, updates and upgrades to that to help make that vetting even easier. It's also introducing things like an AI brief builder. So for some of our brands who don't even know where to get started, it's as simple as, putting in a couple of sentences, sharing your website, what you want to accomplish, and helping you with our best practices actually draft a brief that you can go live to the community with. One of the other things that we're seeing too is brands, and this has been happening for a long time, but brands having to do more with less, right? You have less people, you have less money, you have less resources, but yet the expectations continue to get higher and higher on you doing your job. And so how can we as a platform make it easier for you? And so one of the things that we're also going to be rolling out is the ability for you to take content that was created, whether it was by a creator in our platform, or say maybe your creative agency or somebody internally created for you, and using our AI tool actually create multiple different versions, whether you need it in different languages, whether you need it mentioning different cities or locations, whatever different call to action, tagline, what have you. So really kind of being able to take content that's created, like I said, in platform or off, and take it from one version to 100. Same thing goes for, let's just say you only have vertical video because you have been largely focused on social media, but now you're starting to buy online video and you need horizontal video. We now have a tool for that. Again, we can make it easier for you to take that vertical video, turn it horizontal, fill it in a matter of minutes. So I think the biggest takeaway, like you kind of mentioned at the start of this question, is how can platforms like ours or any platform you work with, how can we make it that much easier for you to scale your content creation?
And then kind of piggybacking off of that question too, if you were to give one piece of advice to brands looking to scale their influencer marketing efforts, just overall, what would it be? Again, I know that's kind of a loaded question. I'm sure there's many things coming to mind, but would just love to hear, if you were to pull out one, what's kind of something at the forefront of your thoughts right now?
That's a good question. I think the most important thing is to build a system, not just run a campaign, right? So like I kind of mentioned at the beginning of this, instead of having one-offs, work on building partnerships. So instead of running an influencer campaign and judging success based on one, it's like, why not build this influencer media mix, I guess I'll call it, as a systematic part of your marketing strategy, right? And I think if you can kind of change the way you're thinking about that and knowing that like influencer marketing is going to be a part of that, you can then start to develop processes that you follow for the creative discovery, that you follow for vetting, that you follow for briefing, contracting, all the way through to measurement, right? And by doing that, you can now create a repeatable workflow that will enable you to maintain that quality while also allowing for scale. So I think that would be my piece of advice. Like I said, is focus on like building that system so you can make it repeatable and learn from it and continue to optimize.
Yes. Yeah. And with that too, the more data you can track, and why did this content piece work versus this, and maybe this message versus that message. And so the systems, having those built out in advance, to your point, it makes that so much easier. So how to kind of repeat and pull inspiration from previous campaigns that were effective. So yeah, great
Absolutely.
advice. Yeah. Well, Theresa, we have to know, of course, if a brand is listening again and they're like, I want to get started with Popular Pays, how do we do that? Where do we find you all? And then 2, are you on LinkedIn? Where can we connect with you personally as well?
Yes, thank you. That's actually really nice. I am on LinkedIn, Theresa Gaarde, so you can go ahead and find me there. And our website is, www.popularpays.com. Or even easier, you can just email me at Theresa with an H, Theresa@lightricks.com.
Amazing. I will have your email as well as the link directly to Popular Pays in the show notes. So be sure to check that out. Theresa, just really appreciate you sharing more about the platform itself, but also just your strategies and tips on influencer marketing. Excited to see kind of where this industry leads us in the rest of this year, and just also what you all are up to and how you continue to build out this platform. So thank you so much for sharing today.
Thank you for having me. It was wonderful chatting with you, Cassie.
Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode. If you enjoyed this conversation, I would love your feedback. And if you're ready to take things to the next level, sign up for my weekly newsletter in the show notes. You'll get weekly career and marketing insights straight to your inbox. And if you have an idea for a future Marketing Happy Hour episode, shoot me an email. hello@marketinghappyhr.com. Thank you again, and I'll see you next Thursday.